just a quick review. What is leadership? Leader is someone who influences others to action or decisions. You must have others for leadership. So it's a group, it's a team, it's an organization. And to lead, someone has to follow. So we've talked some of the types of leadership styles that I've talked about is directive, which is pretty much a command style leadership, coaching, which is more of as a coach player, teacher student type relationship, supportive leadership, where it's a lot more interaction between the leader and the folks that are not leaders and making decisions, a lot of delegation. And then lastly, delegating leader, which basically lets the group make the decision. And they provide them all the information they need to make a decision. So again, I advocate situational leadership styles. The different situations require different styles of leadership. Let's see, my internet is, so who becomes a leader? We talked about, again, a group, if you have a group, you have to make an action or make a decision, you got followers, and then there is the power that comes with being a leader and what type of power you might have. We'll get into that. So who can maybe tell me some of the different types of power that comes, with being in a group, team, or organization? Who can talk to me about what power is and what that means? Anyone have any thoughts?
I think with power in group, I think no one should be in charge for like a team thing, like for a project, because everyone should have their own opinion and everyone should make like their own choices.
Okay. All right, good. Anyone else?
So in my opinion, what power is a specific position of power. So what people or what you put in yourself is a specific position. You don't have to be in a position to be in leadership, to be a leader. But what power is that you have this specific position and now you have specific things that you can do with that power. But you're not necessarily not be a leader nor a leader, not a leader.
Good. I also think, there are different power is the ability to either provide, reward someone or to punish someone. So you're, let's take your parents. Your parents have the power to, if you want to go somewhere, they have the power to grant you that you're able to go do something with your friends, or the power, to tell you no, that you can't do something with your friends. Different. So, there's some types of power that are used you can use to reward people. Again, maybe somebody is, if you and your friends and you get ready to go somewhere and somebody's got one of your friends has got a lot of money and is willing to maybe share and buy something or help buy something for the rest of the group. Well, you know what? You're going to kind of give him a little more authority and a little more leadership opportunity because he's got some money that you're interested in sharing. Same thing if you have groups. If you're in a group and it'd be a group of your friends, and everybody's going to get in, and one person's going to drive. The person that is driving, for the simple fact that he's providing transportation for everyone, then has a little more power to influence what's going on. So that's part of what the power part of it is. And sometimes, people may not have a title, but they actually have a whole lot of power, and sometimes even more power than someone that has a title. So let me go back and share my screen again. So power gets to be a big part of who becomes a leader. You could say someone is, if you're into again, your group of friends and you're into a dispute among you guys, and so someone makes an unfortunate decision and pulls it. Hey, there's some power that comes with that gun that make people stop and think. Some people have power because they have the ability to talk real well, and they can and they can fast talk, or they can smooth talk you or the group into doing things. So, but the main part again, who becomes a leader is what is the group missing? Who's bringing something to the group that the group doesn't already have? Something that's different and unique from everyone else. So, move on. So before I get into the group dynamics, we're gonna stop. We're gonna go back and talk a little bit about something that and part of it was your one of your homework assignments. All right. So we started getting into this discussion. We ended last time was how do bad people or how do bad leaders get into leadership position? And I know you guys, all, submitted and did your assignments. So, I'd like some people to share why you think bad people get into leadership positions. Anyone? Chester?
I think that not enough people do enough to prevent it from happening, especially with, like, for example, the 2016 election. Like, you noticed that a lot of millennials or younger people didn't vote, and they didn't really take Trump serious enough to go out and prevent it from happening.
Good. All right. Who else?
I have an answer.
Sure. Go ahead, Jared.
Well, I use an example as Hitler he united people under a common enemy, and he used the hate to work his way up the ranks and become the leader of Germany.
Good. Very good point. Who else?
Anyone else? I'm going to speak.
Go ahead, Jameer. Do you have something you want to say?
So yeah, I actually do agree with Jerry here. So something that Hitler and Trump had in common is that they did appeal to a majority with something that they appealed to people who were desperate, who were with them. They appealed. So back when Adolf Hitler was getting the power, Germany was not in a good place. They were, after World War I, they were not a good place. They were suffering. They were in a lot of debt, and they were desperate. They really just needed somebody to take control, and they were really willing to follow almost anybody. And Hitler had an answer and a plan. And similar to Trump, well, it didn't, like, we know that he doesn't have a plan, really doesn't have a plan now, but like similar to Trump, when he was getting elected, it seemed like that he was like, hey, immigration is a big problem. And a lot of people could relate to that. And it seemed like he had a plan, and his plan was to just build a wall, which feels stupid, but a lot of people just agree with it. And I feel like that's another reason why he got elected.
All right. Anyone else want to weigh in? So let's go back. We've talked a lot about Adolf Hitler, at the end of the last meeting, and he's came up in quite a few. You guys talked about your homework assignment. We talked about how do bad people get into leadership. So let's start off talking about him. So who can tell me, and I know some people talked about it a little bit here just recently, But what was the situation in Germany when when Hitler came along?
They were in a depression due to World War One. That's what happened.
They were in a depression. What else? Anybody think of? They were in a depression. They had lost, World War One. They were in a depression.
They lost land. They lost they
Go ahead, say it.
they basically got really restricted of the rights. They were basically taken over by all these other countries, telling them what to do and how to do it.
Yeah. So and they were, and so again, so because the country was in such a disarray, and people were struggling, people weren't happy, with their way of life. Then what kind of alternative did Hitler offer?
He offered fascism and put the blame of their problems on the Jewish people.
Good. Yeah. He offered an answer, put the blame, gave him somebody to blame, and so what else did Hitler have going for him?
He was gonna get them out the depression. That's what he offered.
He was going to get him out of depression, but he was also considered a very good public speaker. He was considered a very good public speaker, and so he was able to use that as well. So and everybody knows, and I'm going to make this statement. Everybody knows that he's in the office, right? Everybody does know that, correct? All right. So let's take that and compare it to, what a lot of people have talked about, here is, let's talk about our current president. And so let's compare why did, again, he got elected to office. The country wasn't in a depression. So what is it that he appealed to that got him elected?
So, does anyone else speak?
Go ahead, so speak up a little louder. I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, so like I was saying before, he appealed what you could probably call a silent majority. So you could say that he appealed to people who were saying well, immigration is a big problem and I don't want to lose my job. And maybe not a lot of people spoke up about that because they're afraid, but maybe Trump for them was their voice. And so he spoke to them and saying, here's the problem, here's the immigration problem, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it.
And so he had someone to blame, right?
Yes.
Very, very, very much like what we talked about with Hitler. I don't necessarily think he is, but some people consider he had experience on TV. Some people consider him that he speaks well. I don't subscribe to that, but some people think that he speaks well. So again, think about what else? Because we weren't in a depression. We had just finished 8 years of President Obama, who is a very popular president. So what else? What else do you think Trump get elected? Elijah? Lamont?
I agree with Chester.
You speak up a little bit.
I agree with Chester. The people, the silent majority.
So, and I'm saying, so if there's a silent majority, how come that silent majority hadn't came out before?
They were they saw somebody who just put their view in a light of leadership and just jumped on the bandwagon.
Okay. All right. And so, some of it could have been, some of it could be that they also didn't like the other candidate that was running.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like the election, the 2016 election as a whole, was very, there weren't really good options because you have Hillary Clinton, who's, I guess, like an embodiment of the worst aspects of our government, while Trump is like an embodiment of the worst aspects of our culture.
That's a very good description. That's a very good description, you know. So, you know, and we can talk about a silent majority, but there's no way that Donald Trump could have won in 2016 if he didn't. Some states that voted for President Obama previously to now vote for him. I mean, there's no way he could have got elected unless he did that. Look again. So, you know, we've got a couple of examples. Again, let's talk about why else. How do bad people get into positions of leadership and authority? So we've talked about. I think one of the things we've talked about is if there is a crisis. You know, a crisis would be probably, you know, a lot that contributed to Donald Trump getting elected was frustration from some people. 3 is if you know, other candidate really not really unpopular. So those are all reasons why, you know, bad people get into leadership positions. Can anyone think of any other reasons that bad people get into leadership positions?
Cheating. Kind of cheat their way out through the system and say, now they're on top, you know, kind of, you know, rig votes or something.
Yeah, cheating. Yeah, that.
I have another one.
Yeah, go ahead, Jared.
Well, let's say it's an election and that they're the bad person, but all the other candidates who are running against them either dropped out or are worse than that person. So there's really no other option. That's the best of the worst.
All right, good. So it's the queen of the pigs, right? You know, type deal. All right. Anyone else have a thought on anything else on how Kamal? All right. So
yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on how on why bad people get into leadership positions?
Just that I feel like that they get into positions just because they're persuasive. They have a way of talking to people. Not necessarily people don't see the bigger picture. They just are easily taken off track.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things that happens is, you know, sometimes we don't look close enough at candidates and really understand and get to know them before we let them get into leadership positions. You know, and that's one thing that, again, our current president is very good at. He's very good at changing the subject, you know, hiding things like, you know, he's not going to disclose his taxes, you know, so he doesn't want you to know him very well, because the more you know him, the more red flags, you know, that can go up. So, but part of that is on us, is to look at leaders and make sure we know what our leaders are, and another thing is the things that we do to select leaders are not, they're going to be good leaders. So let's take an example. Let's take, again, we'll talk about the President of the United States. So they run in primaries and they run in caucuses, and, you know, then there's a convention, you know, they win the convention, you know, they campaign against the other person. There's a series of debates, you know, they go out and campaign, and then we vote. None of those things that they're doing to win to become president, none of those things make them a good president. It would be like, it would be the same thing as we have a debate between Jameer, Chester, and Nishan and Jared. You guys debate, and whoever wins the debate, you know, that's the person that we're going to pick to cook dinner tonight. You know, because you can debate well or talk well has nothing to do with whether you cook well. And you can tell me how well you can cook, but, you know, we don't have anything that really lets you know how this person is going to do when they get into office.
I agree on that. So, and part of that, I feel like it's on our founding fathers, because with the way they said it is like, you need to be 30 years old, you need to be over 30 years old, and be born in America. That's pretty much the basic two things you need to become president, which is like, anybody can do that stuff. You know, I feel like to truly become president, I feel like you really need experience in politics. I know nothing about politics, so I'm not going to make you a good president. I really don't know anything about politics. I have to study politics. I have leadership positions. I know stuff, but I don't know politics.
Well, that's a good point. So tell me, can anybody, let's take the presidents out of this. And can anyone think of, you know, someone that you know, maybe, you know, it's in your school, it's on your team or whatever, that has got a leadership position, but probably they really don't deserve it? Can anyone think of someone?
You want us to say it out loud? Like, you want us to tell?
Yeah, I want you to. Yeah.
Oh, my basketball coach. Like, I said my basketball coach.
Okay. And why is that?
Cause like he's just like, he always he picks favorites, which I can understand as a coach. Like, you want to pick like who you think is like good, but like the people he picks, like they shouldn't even be on the team. Like, they shouldn't even be considered. Like, all the players he picks, like, they always turn over the ball. They make dumb decisions, and then he writes up dumb plays in like horrible situations where like we'll need like a layup or something, and he'll try to get us a three, and like he's just not a good coach.
That's a good. That's a good one you described. Who else can tell me about a situation that you're aware of or involved in?
football captain. Yeah, who was a football captain on the football team last year. Smart guy, good guy. He doesn't make smart decisions. He just doesn't. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy, but he just really does not make smart decisions. He gets emotional. Really good football player, and big reason why he's captain of the football team because he is a really good football player. But he doesn't make smart decisions. He doesn't really lead by example. He doesn't show up to class sometimes, and he gets bad grades. And he doesn't really lead by example. He gets in trouble in school, but he is a great football player. He again a good guy, and he is a smart guy. He's just not interested, and he's just not like in general a good football player, but not a good leader.
No, that's a great example as well. Sometimes because people get leadership positions because they're good at something. They're a good athlete. They may be really smart. They may be really talented. Playing the instrument. That doesn't make them. That doesn't make them a good leader. So again, most people don't know how to lead. And it is interesting that if you go back and look at, there's very few Hall of Fame. We'll do athletes. There's very few Hall of Fame athletes, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, that go on to be very good coaches, head coaches, because it's a different, it's a different leadership that you have to do. And it's the same way. There's a lot of very talented musicians that don't lead their own groups because they're very talented in what they do, but they don't know or are not interested in leading. Something you have to want to do. Can I get a third? Example of someone that's in leadership position that that should not be in leadership position?
For my school, I had this substitute, and I know for substitute, you don't really know the students or what they're learning, but she was that substitute that did not care what students did. Students could run out the classroom and pull the fire alarm, and she would not care. And I think that's not a good leader to the students, because I think you're not showing that. Another, you're showing no responsibility in what kids and what you're teaching them. So I think that's a bad leader.
I would agree. So let me ask you, let's say I want to ask go through and talk to, so what's the one thing that's most important for you when you have an opportunity to lead? What's the one thing that you have to do in being a leader?
Lead by example. I feel like me personally.
Lead by example. Okay, that's a good one. All right. What else? Anybody else give me? If I messed up your name, I'm sorry. Kappa Martin. Kappa.
I have an example.
Sure, go ahead.
Do good when no one's looking.
Good when no one's looking. Yeah.
Because someone's always watching.
Yeah. What else? So, like I said, for whatever group, hey, they tell you, hey, you're in charge. Well, what's the one thing you have to do?
Be willing to listen to other people's opinions and advice.
Yeah, be willing to listen. That's an important one.
For me, A good leader would be like projecting.
Okay, help me understand projecting, just so I make sure I understand.
Because maybe if you're like shy, that's not really a good leader. You need to be like projective and show yourself.
Okay, good. Give me, look for two more. We, Christian.
I'd say somebody that is like somebody that is very like he's able to like control his team, like not too controlling, but like to a point where like he's not getting pushed over, and where he's just like a strong leader, like just strong.
All right, and give me one more. Jackson. Jackson. All right, Kyle. Kyle. Elijah. Elijah. Vance. Xavier. We got a lot of folks on mute tonight. Xavier. All right. Go back up toward the top. Elijah. Elijah.
Yes, I would say putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and seeing from their perspective.
All right. Good. All right. See from their perspective. Good. Well, good. All right. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna share my screen again, and there we're gonna talk about group dynamics. So again, a group is a collection of people who interact with one another. A group could be your football team. A group could be your class. Your class. People in your class. A group could be just you and your friends hanging out. And so, group dynamics deals with what are the attitudes, what are the behavior patterns of a group. Who does what kind of behavior is acceptable, and what's not acceptable. So group dynamics concern how groups get formed, how they function and work together, and the interaction and forces operating between members of the group. So, to give an example. So again, it's easy to talk about you and your friends. So maybe you and your 5 friends, that's a group. And what's the behavior when you guys are together? How do you guys interact with one another? So, again, there's some things that, behavior wise that you think is acceptable or when you and your group of friends are hanging out. And there's some things that you think that are not acceptable when you and your friends are hanging out. So who can give me an example of something that's acceptable when you and your friends are doing whatever you guys would do? Well, what's something that's acceptable?
I have one, but it's gonna sound weird. But kind of be the friend that says no. Be like saying like be the friend that says no, but not like to like everything. So you want to sound like too lame, but like if it's something like drastic, you got to be that no friend to like put everybody, let them know like this ain't gonna work. Like it's not a good idea. Because I know plenty of people who make like really stupid mistakes if they would have just had that one no friend instead of just saying yes so they won't look lame or something.
That's an outstanding example. That's an outstanding example. To be able to say no, to your friends. Be able to say, no, you don't need to do this. When it's in their best interest and everyone else's best interest. So give me an example then. Someone give me an example of what is not acceptable behavior with your group of friends. Because everybody's a little different. With your group, what's not acceptable?
Doing drugs and drinking and stuff like that.
Doing drugs and drinking. Okay, that's hey, there are some group of friends that's very acceptable for. Not saying that it should be, but there again, that's a very good example. So, let's talk about you and your friends and how you interact with one another. So somebody tell me about how you interact with your friends.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Always, well, never bully each other and like never try to pull them into something when you should know by now that is unacceptable. Don't try to pull them into don't try to pull them into your situations.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, and so we all have ways that we behave and interact. So, think about, somebody give me an example of something you do with your friends or a way you behave with your friends that you don't behave that way other places. So let me give you an example. So with me and my friends, we'll get together, or even now we'll get on the phone and we'll get on a conference call, and we use some, at least for my generation, which would kind of be maybe slang language, and sometimes we use that kind of, we'll talk to one another that way. But when I'm in a professional situation, then I put on my professional hat and I talk in a professional manner. So, one of the things, for example, and I'll take this a little further example, one of the things, just because we all quote unquote boys, hey, somebody may call me and say, hey, what's up, boy? And I'll say, hey, man, I'm not doing anything. I'm just, sitting here, working on the computer, working on this project, that I have to get done for Kappa League. Well, I'm not going, someone that I have a professional relationship with, I'm not going to call them up and say, hey, what's up, boy? What you doing? That's not, that's not, that's something I do with my friends or say to my friends that I don't say to anyone else. So does anyone have an example they'd like to share of that?
Yes, I do. My mic wasn't working earlier when you called on me. I apologize for that.
No problem.
But
I have an example.
Go ahead, Jackson. Then I'll go to, I don't know who it is because it just comes up iPhone. Go ahead, Jackson.
Okay, like when I'm hanging out with my friends, I guess you could say, like we would be kind of loud, laugh and play around, horse around. But I wouldn't act like that per se if I was at work. I wouldn't, joke around and laugh with my coworkers or anything like that. I would be more serious because I'm in a more serious environment.
Very good point. I'm not sure who that is because it just comes up iPhone. So
I'm Deshaun.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, if I don't call your name, it's because I couldn't see it. Go ahead, Deshaun.
Yeah, I understand. I play golf, so I kind of have a term for it. I got it from the movie called The Hate You Give. It was a great name for it, code switching. So like I have to like change my tone, like when I'm like on a golf course a lot. So I got to be a little bit more respectful, more open to my surroundings, what I'm doing, because like I can't do what other people. I can't do what like people are doing. They can laugh and joke and all that, but I can't do that. Because like on a team, like I'm not gonna lie, them white boys doing some weird stuff, and I can't even say. Cause if I say that, they're gonna look at me differently. And I can't have them looking at me like that because like I'm here to play golf. I'm not here to really like, I don't know, like I just can't do what they do because I'm gonna be seen as I don't know, seen as a black guy instead of a golfer. So I gotta, so I have to code switch when I'm around people on a golf course.
No, that's a good example. And that's a good term, code switch. So I'll come back and share my screen. So as we get ready, to, I want to talk about, again, group dynamics, and we're going to go into that a little more next time. But groups, there's stages of groups, of group development, and groups evolve. So they mainly talk about there are 4 stages. There's forming, there's storming, there's norming, there's performing. And so we're going to talk about these are the stages that groups go through. And so the forming stage is, again, just like it says, when a group is just forming. So it may be, your a study group or a work group that you've got at school that you're working on a project with. It could be it's a new season for whatever team sport you play on. And so you guys are, while you may know some of them, it's a different group of people because you had some people that have left because maybe they were graduating seniors. You've had some new people that have come in that are maybe freshmen or they've transferred in. So it's a new, so the group is forming. And so when you have that, people are positive. Typically people are kind of polite, with each other because, I really don't know you. So I really can't maybe let you see what I'm really like. I'm going to be very polite and kind of formal with you. Some people are anxious, some are excited because they're meeting new people or in a new situation for the first time. And so you kind of really don't know, okay, who's really the leader, if it's a school project that you're in a group with, who's going to really do what in the project, who's going to kind of decide what we do or who does what role. Or even if it's on a sports team, it may be that, this guy, he might have the title of captain, but, we're not really sure if he's really a leader. Maybe somebody else might be the leader that's not actually the captain, and so it's a process of members getting to interact and know one another. That's the forming stage of it. The second stage is storming. And this is where a lot of teams, fail. Because typically, depending on how big the group is, people kind of form into subgroups and cliques, and people try to find people that are similar to them, and they kind of, form their own little clique over here, and then this clique doesn't agree with another clique, and that kind of creates tensions, and so, a lot of times because you got all these different cliques, and maybe somebody's not in any clique and they're just kind of left out by themselves, people get frustrated, there's conflict, and that's where a lot of teams get stuck into and never can get out of, this clique stage, not everybody's kind of working, for their own self. So, there is, so again, a sports team is really good, to use an example, but, maybe, hey, you know what, my couple of guys here, my little clique is, man, we're over here on the defensive line. And you know what, I really don't care what those offensive guys want to do, and man, all we worried about is, man, hey, with defensive line, we want to get our sacks and we want to go chase the quarterback and make tackles and and I'm not worried about, you know, whether I've got this gap to defend or not. I want to get there, make a tackle, and get my name called, you know, on the public address system. So those are, a lot of teams get stuck there. Teams that fail, you know, typically get stuck in those kind of cliques, you know, and they never can find their way out of them. The third stage is, if you can get to that stage, it's called norming. And, you know, it's more about where these cliques kind of work together and they start to, you know, reach out to other cliques, and they start thinking about, well, you know, it's all, you know, I mean, it's all great that, man, defensive line is doing this, but man, I'm tired of losing. I want to win. And, you know, man, I realize, man, if you know, if I don't do what I need to do in the overall for the team, then man, we're not going to have a chance to win. People start to develop better relationships, you know, and again, it's called norming because, again, people start to kind of normalize their relationships and normalize, you know, their understanding of what's going on in the team. And so, and sometimes, you know, again, teams can go from storming to norming, and sometimes they'll fall back into storming again because people get selfish. So again, teams, you know, kind of, you know, so that's norming. So the last stage, and the stage that all groups want to get to, is the performing. And this is when members of the group see themselves as a group. It's not just, you know, me and what I want to do. They see themselves as a group. You know, they see everybody making a contribution. They have behaviors are kind of set and followed. And, you know, the team reaches, you know, a state where it's working together without a whole lot of friction toward whatever their goals are. So those are the 4 stages. And so I'm going to stop sharing the screen. So I'm going to ask you, somebody tell me about a situation you were in where your group, team, organization, whatever class, whatever you want to call it, was in the forming stage. Who can give me an example?
So back when I was a sophomore now, yeah, sophomore, I was in Jared C. Raiders, and we were just trying to get together. You know, we were trying to form a team. We just got a B team, and it was like the first B team that we had in like the last decade. And so we were all just trying to get to know each other, trying to get to see how everything, what level we were at athletically. Yeah, because that's what kind of the Jared C. Raiders is about. It's about athletic competitions. So yeah, we were trying to get to know each other and stuff. That's kind of where we were.
All right, good. And so again, forming happens all the time. You know, when you go back to school, whatever, you know, activity that you might be in, again, even though you might have been in that activity for several years, the fact that you're coming back to school, again, some people have left, some people, you know, are coming in that's new. You're going to go through the forming part all over again. It may not last long, or just think about your friends. Think about the group of friends that you really like to hang out with. And someone new comes along, and one of your friends wants to bring them into your group. The process of bringing that one new person into your group kind of starts the process all over again. Doesn't mean you have to stay forming very long, but you go back and start forming all over again. All right, somebody tell me about, when they were in a norming situation. Anybody tell me about a norming situation? All right. Deshaun, what about you?
Wait, what stage was it? I forgot what the name was.
Well, it's a norming. That's after you formed and you guys are starting to set again what your norms are.
A norming stage for me. I guess would be when at my old school we had this thing called I create, and maybe like a week before we presentate, we always had like this help getting information. So we always like help one another find the information that we needed.
Good. So again, we're going to get ready to wrap up.